Many Muslims refer to alleged prophecies, or the Prophet Muhammad is upon in the New Testament, particularly referring to statements in John's Gospel, referred to as Paraclete, that may be in English, an advocate or one who is to come. Do you find those persuasive? Because I have problems with finding them very convincing, because I know about a little bit of New Testament Greek and so on, and I find that slightly troubling. How is one to read those passages? Have you looked at them, and do you find them persuasive in dawah work with Christians?
Christians generally do not find the Muslim presentation on this convincing, because the manner in which the Gospel of John presents the Paraclete sayings is for the purpose of showing that the Paraclete was either the Holy Spirit or Jesus or both. Jesus in his return, he comes into the believer. But one needs to go a little bit more deep than this. Raymond Brown, in his 2-volume commentary on John's Gospel, has an appendix dealing with the Paraclete. And not only he has this has an appendix dealing with that, but several commentaries on John's Gospel do that as well, which is interesting because usually the commentaries on the Gospels follow a pattern of dealing with one verse at a time, or sometimes one word at a time. It keeps going sequentially, and it never needs to break to explain a point like this. But the concept of the Paraclete seems to present unique problems in commentary and interpretation, and hence they have to deal with it as a separate matter. Sometimes they break the text right at John chapter 16 to explain the Paraclete, and then they continue. In the case of Raymond Brown, he has this as an appendix, a separate treatment at the end. He notes that there have been some biblical scholars before him who said that the Paraclete was a male salvific figure. And I have looked into the writings of some of these scholars that he mentions, for example, Della Fosse and Sass and Hans Windisch in particular, some German scholars. And what Windisch is saying is that if we look at John chapter 14 to 16, chapters 14 to 16, we'll see that in fact there are 5 Paraclete sayings, 2 in John chapter 14, 2 in John chapter 16, and 1 in 15. And if these sayings are studied carefully, we'll see that there are actually 5 ways of representing one original saying about the Paraclete. And it seems that that one original saying about the Paraclete now comes to be represented 5 ways, and some of these ways have it that the Paraclete is the Holy Spirit, some of them have it that Jesus is the Paraclete, and obviously the oral tradition was developing in various ways, in separate directions, and the Gospel writer then simply gathered all of these at the stages that they were at various levels of development, and included them in his Gospel with his own transitional phrases and so on. So if we follow his thinking, and I think his thinking is very clear, and his proofs for that are quite convincing, then Jesus spoke about someone to come after him, a male salvific figure. However, over time, Christians came to understand that Jesus is the culmination of all of the revelation of God. He somehow is God himself here, revealed here and now. And once that understanding was developing, the idea that another person will come after Jesus who might somehow complete a message, that came to be diminished. And the sayings came to be represented as they are now. The clearest indication that the one to come after Jesus would be a male salvific figure is in John chapter 16, starting with verse number 12. So that's the 5th of the 5 sayings there. And the clearest one that is the Holy Spirit is John chapter 14, verse 26, which says, the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit. So you have 2 different representations of the same thing. Any other questions?